This video is on the Australian media landscape, like as at 2019. And right now, three companies that comprise Australian commercial television that own them, they're almost entirely owned by international corporations. And like one's actually owned, as we know, Channel 9 by Goldman Sachs, the international bank. But even all these international corporations, they have ties to the international banks with, they share the same directors and shareholders. So basically, international banks control and own our media. Now, they didn't buy our TV stations because, they are enamored with Australia and, wanted to be involved in our entertainment industry. They weren't sort of looking at neighbours and home and away and thinking, oh, geez, that's pretty good. I want to be a part of that. Now, they bought our media with the express purpose of controlling what Australians saw and, more importantly, what we don't get to see. So, like through so-called news bulletins, they control all the information that's conveyed to us. That importantly, that we're not allowed to see certain content or in-depth questions, put to politicians about trade deals, debt levels, and the consequences of those sort of big items that actually affect us, because they want control of that, and they also have total control over which politicians get elected. They can simply, like we say, Corey Bernardi, who's against, wants to lower the debt. All they do is just not interview him at all, just totally ignore him. They control all the media and they just cut him out. Like we've got Clive Palmer, that bullfed, that buffoon. I'll do a video on him, but he gets plenty of exposure purely because he's an idiot and nothing he say will ever amount to anything. And that's how they want to control the politics in Australia. Like Channel 9 got Malcolm Turnbull. If Goldman Sachs did not buy Channel 9, Malcolm Turnbull would not have been Prime Minister. They just constantly promoted him and built up momentum until they got him elected. So that's the whole purpose behind these companies buying up Australian media. Now, Channel 9, like they've been owned by Goldman Sachs since 2006. Channel 10 were bought by CBS very recently, I think in 2017-18. And Channel 7, they've been jointly owned by an international private equity firm, Kohlberg Kravis Roberts, since 2006. So you've got two that are wholly owned and one that's jointly owned. So that's how much control they have. The other media alternative is obviously the ABC. Now, they feign independence, but look, the government pays their wages, for God's sake. None of their directors will be appointed that then control, all of the aspects of the operations. If they don't really, stay in line with the government, they just won't get those positions. So the government controls the ABC no matter how they try and paint it. There was actually another TV station in Sydney anyway, and it was called TVS. And here's a bit of information about it. Television Sydney was a free-to-air, sponsors-based community television station broadcasting in Sydney, Australia. The station had lost both its community franchise and a battle to remain on air in December 8, 2015 and ceased transmission on December 20, 2015. So let's just have a quick look at what this station was about, and then we'll find out about how it came to its demise. So in 2003, the government decided to issue community TV licenses for, the community to, make its own TV, which seemed like a great idea. And in 2006, they officially commenced transmission. And the University of Western Sydney led a syndicate to run TVS, and they could broadcast for the first time across all of Sydney. To some information on TVS broadcast programs. TVS broadcasts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Despite a very limited marketing budget, the channel progressively created a loyal audience. I used to watch TVS. TVS recorded continual increases in cumulative audience numbers. Wow, that would have been great for what the government envisaged. They would have wanted community TV to have been successful. When it launched its digital service in early 2010, audience levels began to increase again with a 15% increase in the first month. So what went wrong? It's all going along swimmingly. The government created this community TV license and more people are watching it. What could possibly have gone wrong? Now, when you read that middle paragraph there, all will become crystal clear. In September 2014, Australian Federal Communications Minister Malcolm Turnbull, wow, what a surprise, announced that licensing for community television stations would end in December 2015. Now, seemingly on the surface, why would he do that? Because audience numbers were steadily increasing up to that point. Well, he ceased the licenses and didn't give an explanation as to why. There was a bit of backlash, but still not enough people were watching it at that stage. But the audience numbers were still increasing. And now the reason why they shut it down is they want to herd everybody over to into the arms of the commercial networks for their news services and entertainment platforms, which are just full of fluff, misinformation, and manipulation of the mind. Could you imagine, like right now in 2019, if there was a television station that broadcast from Wollongong to the Central Coast to the Blue Mountains, like 4.5 million people that it could cover, that was an alternative to the international corporation controlled media that provides nothing but meaningless fluff for entertainment and absolutely no news at all except car crashes, the house fires, and being fully complicit with fake terror attacks, not questioning anything, just reading police statements and government department media releases and saying that's what happened without investigating anything. Imagine an alternative to that, a TV station run by people like us, the community, people better than us, people better that can make better videos than me on YouTube, getting onto and more informed, getting on, having a platform to discuss those things, to try and ask the politicians, give us a look at the TPP. You've got, if they'll build the audience up enough, you've got 1 million people all wanting to see it. They just could not have that. You'd have, people asking, trying to get Josh Frydenberg on, asking him about the $444 million that the Great Barrier Reef has got, and no one asks any more questions about. Or they actually get Corey Bernardi on, give him a platform to speak to the people, which he doesn't have at the moment because he can't get on TV. That's what would happen. That's what they were afraid of. That explains why, with no reasons, legitimate reasons, Malcolm Turnbull closed down TVS. And it would have sprung up in all other capital cities. That would have, it would have just bypassed. You would have had investigative, community-minded journalists actually doing the job of journalism instead of everyone being herded into this mindless, stupefying garbage content that these what do you get? You get sport, women's cricket. You're getting, even the Ashes I don't watch anymore. It's just too, I don't know, repetitive and bland. There is absolutely nothing on TV at all that I watch at all. I record the news shows only so that I can pick them apart and present how they're manipulating people. So just back to this TVS thing, they had to shut this down or this would have taken off. Like, its audience numbers were already increasing. This concept of community television would have just taken over. It really would have. And it would have been regional community. We would have just had Australians trying to inform other Australians, investigating and trying to get to the bottom of all of these issues. But as even asking about the Greek debt crisis, you can't ask about that on mainstream media. It will not be discussed. Deb Knight was on 2GB. She's a complete sellout, and she had a caller, and she let him talk and talk and talk, and he unwittingly stumbled upon the Greece debt crisis just in his talk that he was saying. He said, well, when you talk about Greece, though, and it's the crisis that it's in. And Deb Knight just straight away just said, no, well, that's all we've got time for this caller. Just cut him off. Didn't give an explanation, just said, no time. And you can't ask about the TPP, so you can't talk about debt. Anything big, you cannot get across. But that's what would have happened had TVS survived.